Now that we figured out which is the best solvent for recrystallizing triphenyl methane, what you want to do is start with the impure triphenyl methane and start recrystallizing it. Take about 4 grams in a clean and dry 125 ml Erlenmeyer flask. This 4 grams, you should know the exact weight. However, it doesn't have to be exactly 4 grams. It could be anywhere between 3.9 and 4.1, but note down the weight to the fourth decimal place. So I have already weighed my compound and I have noted down the weight of triphenyl methane I have in this 125 ml Erlenmeyer flask. So what is the first step I'm going to do? I have to start dissolving my impure triphenyl methane in the suitable solvent. You have figured out what the suitable solvent is from the first part of the experiment. Take another 125 milliliter Erlenmeyer flask and get about 100 milliliters of this solvent and keep it corked. Now we will start dissolving this impure triphenyl methane in minimum amount of this hot solvent. What does that mean? This means that we should have everything set up on the steam bath. Our compound as well as the solvent that you are going to use. Now anytime you dissolve a compound in a liquid and heat it to bring it to boil, you must have something inside here which will break the boiling bubbles, like a boiling stone or a boiling stick or whatever you want to use. Today we will just use boiling chips. So this boiling chips, they break the surface area of the bubbles, and so the solution will not boil over. Just add a couple of boiling chips. To triphenyl methane. We are ready to start dissolving our compound in this solvent. Initially, I don't want you to start adding dropwise because that will take forever. So what you want to do is start off by dissolving the compound in about 30 milliliters of solvent. This Erlenmeyer flask is marked 50, 75, etc. So if you add up to about half the 50 ml mark, then it doesn't have to be exact, but about 25 to 30 milliliters. This way you're saving some time because you know that is really not enough to dissolve our compound. At this point, if you want, you can have the steam on a little higher intensity so the heating is better. Also, if you want to have a stirring rod, go ahead and use a stirring rod to mix the compound as well. Now continue to add hot solvent. Swirl it. Bring it to almost boiling. It should not be boiling because if it boils, what is happening is the added solvent is evaporating off. So you are really not doing anything. You are adding the solvent, you are evaporating the solvent. So just bring it to boil, add some more. And the question that comes to your mind is, how do I know when I have added enough solvent? Remember what are all the impurities present in this compound. You have an insoluble impurity and you have some soluble impurities along with the colored impurity. You can notice that the solution color is yellow. And remember, when we figured out this solvent for recrystallization, the standard triphenyl methane that we used was not yellow. So there is also colored impurities. Now the question was, how much solvent is enough solvent? If you bring it to boil and take it out and notice how much solid is left in here, you notice that there is considerable amount. Put it back on the steam bath. Continue to add the hot solvent. and swirl the solution. Mix it well. Bring it to boil. And as I said, you can use the glass rod. Once you bring it to boil, lift it and see what happened to the amount of solid that was originally there. You notice that the amount has gone down a little bit more from the last time we checked, which means the compound is still dissolving. So we continue to add the solvent, mixing it well again. Bring it to boil. Swirl it in the meantime. Let it not boil over. And see what happens. There is even less amount of the solid left than the last time I checked. That means the compound is still dissolving. So bring it back to the steam bath. Add a little bit more solvent, but notice that there isn't that much solid left anymore. So you don't want to add too much of the solvent at this point. Just a couple of dropperfuls. Swirl it. Bring it to boil again. So continue to do this process till you notice that there is some solid left behind in this flask and it is not dissolving no matter how much solvent we add. What does that mean? That means there is that insoluble impurity which is not going to dissolve in the solvent. At that point, you know that you have added enough of the solvent to dissolve everything that is going to dissolve in this solvent. Now, if you add a little bit extra solvent, no harm done. So do not panic if you add a little bit more solvent. Remember, we are going to do hot filtration to remove the color. So at that point, you really do not want the solution to be too saturated anyway. So it is okay if we add a little excess of the solvent. All that means is it will take a little longer for the pure crystals to form.